Hampton Roads, and welcome to this week's edition of Beyond Wall Street, the show that helps what's going on in Wall Street make sense for you on your street. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and I'm joined today by Kenny Porter. He is the president and founder of Kenneth Porter and Company, and Wesley Gomez, who is the chief investment officer. Kenny, Wesley, it's great to be in the studio with you. How are you this week?
So great, Kristen. Glad to be here again with you.
Good.
And I brought Wes along with me today.
Good to meet you.
Oh, it's so great to meet you as well. And I'm excited for our viewers to get to know you too. So we have a great show for you at home today. You know, the reality is that there are a lot of people out there that work in financial services. And I know as my role as a financial educator, one of the things I've often heard as I've traveled the country is people have a hard time knowing who they can trust, who they can really rely on to give them solid advice that is in fact in their best interest. And so we've put together a very special show today. If we had to give this show a title, it would be called Different by Design.
Yeah.
And we're really going to be looking at what makes you all different in this space. What makes Kenneth Porter and Company different, and how you're able to really serve people in their best interests. So I know you've been very busy meeting with folks who've been calling from the television show. It's been
great,
gaining traction, but we have a lot of viewers that are newer to us and to you. And so let's just start off today. I would love to hear, Kenny, you go back and share the story about how all of this came to be.
Yeah, you know, it happened by happenstance. I don't want to say a mistake, because you know, God purposes our lives in mysterious ways sometimes.
Yes, he does.
But it started as a young Marine. And so that opportunity that I had in the Marine Corps really set the foundation for where I am today as an advisor for 27 years I'm working on now.
Wow. Which you don't look, by the way. So
yeah, makeup,
congrats on that.
the department, they help us so much with
None of us look our age. It's a good thing, yeah.
So, you know, in that transition from the Marine Corps into the financial services industry, my father-in-law was actually investing with a firm. And he knew that there was a transition problem for me, which I'll talk about more in the show and what we're doing with veterans today. But in that transition, the opportunity was presented to me to be in the financial business. Now, I knew nothing about the financial business. I knew, as an infantry Marine, how to take down targets. But I saw that training really did correlate into the financial services industry, in that if you just point in a direction with a consumer or with one of our clients and help them understand how to get from where they are to where they want to be, there's a process that we use that we'll share more in our show today, where we help people map out getting from where they are to where they want to be, specifically in the pre-retirement, retirement, and business owner phase. But for me, that transition, it took place in a way where I didn't really plan to do it, but my father-in-law shared with me this firm who was hiring veterans in Virginia Beach. And that opportunity presented itself in a way where the gentleman who hired me really took a chance on me. Sent me back to school, sent me through some great financial training, and then just really pointed me in a direction of the way my old gunnery sergeant said was, hey, Porter, be smart enough to listen, but actually dumb enough to go do it. Now, you know, those of you who are Marines out there would understand that comment and how a Marine could say that.
Right.
But that's really been my mentality, is just be smart enough to listen to consumers, listen to their concerns, listen to their desires, their wants, and then create a roadmap for them that is in a joint operation where we're working together to solve their needs and wants for not only their family, but generation and thinking generationally. Wes, bringing your story into that is pretty cool too. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear.
Yeah, years ago, my grandfather passed, okay? And at that time, it's supposed to be a time of, you know, grieving, you know, celebration of life.
Right.
But my dad had the responsibility of actually going through the financial records, talking to Social Security, finding out where the investment accounts were, how everything was titled. And at that time, he was supposed to, you know, grieve, right?
Right.
But instead, because he didn't have my grandfather didn't have a plan or a roadmap, I wanted to make sure that my parents had a roadmap, and that's what I really like doing, and that's why I joined your firm, is because having that roadmap, having a plan, is just going to give you that peace of mind that everybody's really looking for in the end.
I really appreciate that you're sharing this, Wes, because I think a lot of folks can relate to that once they've watched either grandparents or parents pass away. And to your point, when you're grieving, that is not the time, on top of everything else, that you want to have to wade through a financial nightmare or a mess that's been left in your lap. But this happens so often because we're not taught this stuff in school. We're not taught financial education. You know, I think a lot of people are thrust into the real world, so to speak, without this knowledge and knowing that it's so important to have a plan in place. So I love that you're coming from that place of personal experience. I'm sure your whole family learned a lot, and that brings that added layer of compassion as well.
It's a tough conversation to have, but I think, as we both know, it's a necessary conversation.
Absolutely.
It's better to have it sooner rather than later.
For sure, absolutely. Well, I know this next question kind of ties your two stories together. So back, Kenny, when you started the firm in 2012, what did you specifically want to do differently in this industry?
So, Kristen, what I really wanted to focus on was helping people understand how to take their position in pre-retirement. So maybe they're 5 years outside of retirement, and they're thinking, well, what do I do now? I've come through this accumulation phase. And you know, the accumulation phase is similar to like climbing the mountain. So if we think about it like Mount Everest, we got to go up this mountain. And most people think, well, I'm almost there, but when I get there, I'm going to stake my flag at the top of the mountain. I'm going to take my Instagram photo, share with everyone I've retired. But what's interesting about that is that at the top of that mountain, that's only half of the story. The other half of the story is getting down the mountain.
Yes. And have you seen the movie Everest?
I have. And it's not a spoiler alert.
Oh, right.
It didn't go well for a few folks.
No.
And in retirement, unfortunately, that's true for many Americans today. And that old saying of, you know, it's not enough to plan. You've got to prepare to plan. And you got to prepare yourself for going up that mountain and then coming down that mountain. Going down the mountain is a specialty that we focus on. That's called the distribution phase. And you know, in the correlation between mountain and rock climbing and financial planning, 70% of mountain and rock climbing accidents, you know when they happen?
They happen on the way down.
On the way down. And so 100%. Wes and I see that every day, that there are just little tweaks in a plan that can take place, that can change the trajectory of your entire retirement distribution phase. And so what we've done as a firm is that we have focused specifically on working with pre-retirees, retirees, and business owners who are looking for succession. And that's coming down the mountain. So for us, that 2012 launch, that was where my focus was really honed in to say, how can I make a difference for consumers in the Hampton Roads area? And beyond. We work with clients all over the country, but in my hometown, and folks who are going to see this show today, we want to help you in that pre-retirement, retirement, and distribution phase, and help you get from where you are to where you want to be in the most efficient and effective manner possible.
Awesome. Well, I know that you have a special offer for our viewers today, and talk a little bit about what they're going to receive when they actually call into the show.
So that offer we have for you today is a complimentary portfolio review. You can leave your checkbook at home. There's no cost to having this, no obligation, opportunity to sit down with Wes and I and our team of CFAs, CFPs, and be able to give you a complimentary written plan without any strings attached. And we'd like to give you that offer today. You can reach out to us at 844-575-8071, and we'll help you develop that complimentary plan.
Wonderful. Well, Kenny, Wesley, I'm excited to get into the rest of our conversation. So much more to talk about today. But to our viewers at home, if you would like to take advantage of this complimentary portfolio review, all you have to do is pick up the phone and call that number on the bottom of your screen, 844-575-8071. You're also welcome to take out your smartphone, and you can just open up that camera app, point, click, and scan that QR code down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few short, simple questions, and then a member of the team from Kenneth Porter and Company will reach out to connect with you to schedule your complimentary portfolio review that way as well. We have much more on today's episode of Beyond Wall Street. Stay with us.
Yeah, what's interesting about my journey in the financial services industry is it happened by mistake. My early career was in the Marine Corps, serving in the United States Marine Corps. I had a position that was offered to me to leave the Marine Corps and go into the railway. Well, as quickly as I was hired, I was part of a RIF, a reduction in force. So I lost my job with the railway, and now being unemployed, I was on a mission of panic to figure out what I was going to do with my life. Well, my father-in-law happened to refer me to a planning firm that he was working with, and was given an opportunity to go to work with this financial planning firm in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And they were hiring veterans. I interviewed for the position, and my mentor at that time was the owner of that firm and gave me an opportunity in the financial business and sent me through a ton of different financial training in schools to be able to serve clients 27 years later. So 27 years in the business. I had a little 3-year hiatus where I'd sold my advisory firm and took some time off, wrote a book, and then launched Kenneth Porter and Company January 1st of 2012. Seeing the excitement of a retiree being able to say, you know what, Kenny and his team has helped me have the confidence to go into retirement without the fear of running out of money or having too little money in their retirement. There's nothing better than to see that person walk out with that confidence. It just makes me feel great.
Welcome back to Beyond Wall Street. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, here with both Kenny Porter and Wesley Gomez from Kenneth Porter and Company, based right here in the Hampton Roads community. And we are having a very important discussion today. We called this show Different by Design, and really helping educate folks on the different things they need to be thinking about when it comes to working with a financial professional. And I so appreciated in the first segment getting to hear more of your story and how all of this came to be. But Wesley, my next question for you is, how does one actually quantify working with a financial professional? Because I know that a lot of folks often think, well, why should I pay someone? I could technically manage this on my own, right? If I kind of know what I'm doing or I have an interest. How does one really quantify the value of working with professionals such as yourselves?
Yeah, that's a really great question. The first thing I want to make sure people understand is that financial professional adding value, right? Are they educating? Are they opening up your mind to a better approach, whether that's, increasing gains or reducing risk, okay? The other thing you need to make sure is that the financial advisor is transparent, right? And that's where, we're always talking about the fiduciary role,
Right.
making sure they're looking out for your best interest.
Yeah, explain fiduciary, because I know that term gets kicked around a lot, and a lot of folks might not necessarily understand what that really does mean.
Kenny, you want to take this one?
Yeah, so we're really at a position, Kristen, of what we're going to do for our clients is put your interest above our own.
Yep.
We're going to make that commitment to you, and that's been referred to since the Department of Labor ruling as a fiduciary. And in that fiduciary role, we have the responsibility to make sure that our clients know that our interests are behind theirs.
Right.
That they are actually put in front. And that's been my entire career. It's the way I was taught. Even before there was this fiduciary ruling that
Right.
came about a few years ago.
And it's kind of sad that not everyone in our industry is required to be held to this fiduciary standard, right? Because all of us know the value of, I don't ever want to not be acting in a fiduciary capacity.
Exactly. When you look at some of these bigger firms out there, they may have proprietary products. Right.
Yes,
You go to firm A, you're going to get firm A's mutual funds or ETFs.
Yeah.
Now, is that in your best interest? Maybe it is.
Good point.
Maybe it's not.
Right.
And that's where I think us being an independent advisor, that we can provide that access,
Yes.
right? Not just to proprietary products,
Right.
but it's open architecture.
Yep, because you're not beholden to any one set of products or anything
Exactly.
out there.
So I think that's one of the things we talk with our clients about on a continual basis is that we want to focus on process, the process of wealth creation, the process of wealth distribution, not necessarily product. Now, it takes products to make the world go round. You got to have the mutual funds, you got to have the stocks, the insurances, the annuities, the real estate.
Yep.
But those are products. How do those products work together in an efficient and effective manner in order to maximize returns and minimize risk? That's the name of the game.
Right,
Yep.
for sure. Well, and to your point too, talking about some of the bigger firms, I think a lot of times it's a very cookie cutter approach, but I always like to say we're not cookies to be cut. Everyone's situation is different.
I'm going to have to steal that one from you.
Right?
That's good. I like that.
It's a very individualized, personalized thing.
Exactly. Everybody has that personal goals that they want to attain, right? Everybody has a certain starting point that they're at.
Right.
So again, you don't want to put people in the similar buckets. You want to make sure that that you're transparent with how you're going to give them that financial advice, right?
Yep.
And learn about their goals because that result is going to be different for you, me, or you.
Exactly right.
At the end of the day, Kristen, we like to share with our clients in a KISS principle, just keeping it simple. And keeping it simple, there are really three things you can say to your advisor. Number one, Kenny, Wes, I love everything that you've presented. I love everything that you've exposed me to and opened my eyes to. I want to implement everything that you've recommended to us.
Right.
That's an option. The second option could be, well, you know, I like the advisor I already have, but I want you to fill a space or fill a hole for us. I only want to implement a piece of your advice or some portion of your advice.
Right.
That's also an option. It's not a take it or leave it for our firm. But then there's the third option, which is you can take the advice that we've given you and just throw it out the door and go find another opinion. That's completely within your wheelhouse to be able to make those decisions. And we like to simplify it down to that. Either we're a good fit or we're not.
Right. Yep. But at least people are educated and have the options in
Absolutely.
front of them. It's your money
Yeah.
at the end of the day. You get to decide what you want to have done with it, but it's empowering people to make the best decisions for them.
Absolutely.
Well, how do you specifically demonstrate and are able to show people the value that they receive from working with you all in your firm?
That's a great question. So we use a process called LEAP. It stands for Lifetime Economic Acceleration Process. I was trained on this system 27 years ago by an economist. And what he showed and what he proved to me as a new advisor in the business is that you can take a snapshot of a person's entire estate, their net worth, everything, on one piece of paper, and show them the value of where they are and what options you have in changes or recommendations. We can measure risk, we can measure inflation, we can measure those things of planned obsolescence, technological change. Any of those things that are eroding factors, we want to test those in your plan to see how that's going to affect the income distribution phase. So that income distribution phase, we need to be able to verify plan A against plan B and allow the consumer to choose.
Right. And there's so many things that have to be factored into that plan, so many unknown variables, if you will, with retirement planning. Gosh, inflation alone, which, you know, is really on people's radar, especially about what's happened after the last
stealth
couple of
tax.
years. The stealth tax, yep. Taxes in general, which I know you're so passionate about helping folks engage in that strategic tax planning because tax laws are changing all the time.
Absolutely.
There's so many things that go into this distribution phase that have to be planned for and sorted through.
And you know, one of the things that's happening today, Wes, we've seen this with a client we just recently started working with, is that it's not just your income phase, it's not just your personal distribution phase, but a lot of consumers today, especially in that retiring group of 55 to say 70 something, they're finding themselves still caught in a sandwich generation.
Yes.
With a client whose parent had made it to their late 90s, and they had the responsibility of caring for that aging parent,
Right. Yep.
along with the responsibility of exiting their current employment and going into their own retirement phase.
And probably still maybe even paying for college, right? I mean, I don't know if that was the case for this client, but the sandwich generation, I think of it as you're caring for your aging parents and you're caring for children
Young children,
as well.
even young adults, even moving back home with you
Right.
while you have an aging parent who's dealing with long-term care issues.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot of unique situations in this distribution phase that you need to think about. And you know, we'll get into those in our next segment. But one of the big ones is like required minimum distributions. And then how you should take those, when you should take those.
Right.
And then the inheritance of those. We had a client who inherited a significant IRA, and under Secure Act 2.0, the rules changed.
Right. Yep.
Now they're compressed on a 10-year schedule versus being able to do the old traditional stretch IRA.
Yes.
You know, I teed that up for you that we can talk about maybe.
Oh gosh, so much to unpack
Yeah,
with that, right? Because
it really is.
RMDs you don't want to mess around with, because if you get it wrong, then you could be hit with an additional penalty on top of the tax that you owe. And to your point, with this new rule change for inherited IRAs, what that can unknowingly do is bump that child, let's say if the child's inheriting the IRA, into a higher tax bracket. And gosh, that can create a ripple effect of.
And that's exactly what happened with the
Yeah.
client that we were just discussing.
Well, goodness, obviously, you know, so much to talk about here. If someone's watching and they're going, gosh, I didn't know some of these things, I want a second opinion. Maybe you're already working with another financial advisor and they're not having these kinds of conversations with you, but you really are hearing things today that are resonating with you. What would you want to say to that individual?
I would say you can never get a second opinion from the first person that gave it to you. So what we want to offer today is an opportunity to give that second opinion with no obligation. We want to be able to give you a complimentary financial review where you can sit down with myself, with Wes, and any of our team members, and a network of CFPs and CFAs that can put together a written financial plan for you in your distribution phase. And it's important to work on that and to know your numbers. And so we want to give a complimentary review today. You can reach out to us at 844-575-8071, and our team members will get you scheduled and set up to do that first review where we can actually put together a written plan for you.
Wonderful. Kenny, Wes, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, again, that number to call is there on the bottom of your screen, 844-575-8071. Or again, you're also welcome to scan that QR code down in the bottom right-hand corner, and that will get you connected as well. More on this week's edition of Beyond Wall Street right after this.
Good morning, Ben.
Good morning, Ben. Hey, birthday party for Carol and 5. Happy birthday to you.
Good morning, Ben. Happy Monday.
Daryl's birthday, be there or be square. Happy birthday to you. As you can see from our quarterly report on slide number 62, we're trending in the right direction. All signs point to a very positive outlook for the next several years. If you peel back the onion
Ben, do you have anything to add?
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
Well, welcome back to Beyond Wall Street. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, here with Kenny Porter and Wesley Gomez from Kenneth Porter and Company. We are talking today about several things that are so important to keep in mind as you're thinking about your own financial future, what it means to really work with someone who is going to serve your best interests and make sure that you are making the best decisions possible so that you know what to do with your hard-earned money. And, you know, we mentioned in the last segment RMDs, required minimum distributions, and how the law recently changed. You know, it's interesting because I have friends that when they find out I'm doing the show, you know, they always ask me questions, or they're like, oh, I have this money over here, what should I do about it? And I recently was in a conversation with some friends that are in their early 70s, and I mentioned RMDs, and they had no idea what I was talking about, which blew my mind because they have been working with a big corporate firm for many years, but their advisors never had that conversation with them. So let's just, because we touched on it, I think it's important to kind of highlight what they are and what people need to understand about them.
So Wes, I'll take that and run with it, and then we'll bring that into, that's a form of risk. And RMD creates financial risk. Well, what's the risk? Is that could increase income in your distribution phase.
Right.
And so if that increases income, that also increases tax. That 3-letter word that makes people say 4-letter words.
Right. Yes.
So that risk is that now it seems like it's a good thing that RMDs have been pushed out to 73. It started at 70 and a half, moved to 72.
Right.
Now we're at 73, and it's going to index out by, I think, 2034 to 75. So that risk is that consumers take the risk of postponing even longer the distribution.
Right.
That could increase tax risk, which comes into play with what Wes specializes in, is developing these portfolios in a way that we want to minimize and reduce risk. And again, this brings us back to that point of RMDs alongside of this other issue that we see is what happens if you have to take an RMD and the market corrects. And that market correction we refer to as sequence of returns.
Yeah. So how do you approach this risk conversation? Because so much goes into it.
Yeah, risk means many different things to many different people, right? You know, you have market risk, you have interest rate risk, you know, in individual stocks, you have concentration risk,
Yep.
right? You have country risk. So there's many risks out there, but what you need to do is to make sure you take inventory and understand where you currently are to align to your long-term goals.
Yeah.
And most of the people we meet with, they do not align with what the goals that they shared with us. And so, you know, our free reviews actually open the eyes of a lot of investors who honestly have been do-it-yourselfers. They've done the easy part.
Right.
And right now, again, as Kenny talked about, the withdrawal phase, that's the hardest part.
Right.
And making sure you're controlling the variables that you can control is going to put more money in your pocket and less in Uncle Sam's.
Yeah, I'm glad you're bringing this up because I think this happens so often and it's not usually talked about sometimes until unfortunately people have been going down a road that maybe they would have gone down differently if they had known differently. Because to your point, so many folks are familiar with the accumulation years when you are
Right.
putting away money and you're saving during your working years. And a lot of people don't even realize what they're currently invested in,
Yep.
or they think they're really well diversified, or they think that they are taking less risk. But even just the year 2022 was a rude wake-up call for a lot of folks who lost a lot of money. They thought they were invested more conservatively, but because of the investments that they were in, you
Yep.
know, we had that year with stocks going down, bonds
Yeah.
going down at the same time, and wham, all of a sudden they realized that they were in much more risk than maybe they could stomach.
Yeah, like, you know, index investing, I'm sure we're all familiar with that. If you look at the S&P 500, let me ask you a question. The top 10% of the top 10 companies in the S&P 500, what percent do you think is of that index?
Oh gosh, I don't even know.
Kenny, any guesses there?
You're the CIO, so share it with us, man.
It's over 30%.
Wow.
So
Wow,
30% of that index is composed of just 10 companies.
Oh my goodness.
So
Yeah.
everybody's thinking that it's diversified.
Right.
But when you actually look under the hood and look
Yeah.
at the ingredients, so to say, it's very concentrated in 10 companies. So if you ask your grandparents or any investor, do you want to have 30% or more of your dollars in just 10 companies?
Yeah.
You
Good
should
point.
say no.
Right, because you don't ever want to have your eggs all in one basket, right?
Yes, and that's the thing that I think we're talking about here is having control.
Yes.
Right? You can't control the direction of the market.
Right.
You can't control market risk. You know, what can you control? Your asset allocation.
Yeah.
You can control, you know, which accounts to pull from to create that retirement paycheck.
Great
Right.
point.
So let's control what you
And
can.
this is why that review that you offer is so critical. So I'm excited for more folks to connect with you. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you for having
and to
us.
our viewers, thank you for watching. Again, to get your complimentary portfolio review, simply dial 844-575-8071. We love you, Hampton Roads. We look forward to being back with you next week.